They feel it. The shift. The separation. The ending of something they once thought would last forever. And deep down, so do you. This is not just another emotional phase. This is not burnout. This is not you being dramatic. You are about to leave. And this time it's God's doing. Not because you failed. Not because you weren't enough. But because your assignment there is complete. There comes a moment in every awakened soul's life when the environment that once felt familiar starts to feel foreign. Conversations become shallow. Rooms feel heavy. People who once understood you now look at you like you've changed. And they're right. You have. Being chosen does not mean being comfortable. It means being called. Called higher. Called deeper. Called away from what is average and into what is aligned. And alignment often feels like loss before it feels like elevation. When you are chosen, you outgrow places without warning. You outgrow circles without permission. You outgrow mindsets without apology. And that growth threatens people who are committed to staying the same. That's why they misunderstand you. That's why they label you. That's why they try to reduce your expansion into arrogance or rebellion. But what they call rebellion is actually obedience to something greater. A chosen one does not wake up because it's trendy. They wake up because something inside refuses to sleep anymore. They question narratives. They feel energies. They sense shifts before others notice movement. You have always felt different, even as a child. You observed more than you spoke. You felt things others brushed off. You carried burdens that were never yours, and you wondered why your heart felt older than your age. The chosen are often isolated before they are elevated. Isolation is not punishment. It is preparation. It is where clarity sharpens. It is where dependence on people is replaced with dependence on God. And here is the truth most won't tell you. When God is about to elevate you, He will detach you. Not gently, not gradually, but decisively, because hesitation keeps you tied to what cannot follow you. You think you're losing people, but you're losing access to limitations. You think doors are closing, but they are being sealed so you don't walk back into spaces that were shrinking your spirit. The chosen one cannot stay where their soul is suffocating, even if it's comfortable, even if it's familiar, even if it's loved. Comfort is not always alignment. Familiarity is not always destiny. Spiritual awakening is not fireworks. It is friction. It is the painful awareness that you cannot pretend anymore. You cannot shrink anymore. You cannot laugh at things that no longer align with your heart. You start noticing patterns, cycles, manipulations, distractions, and once you see them, you cannot unsee them. That awareness separates you, not because you think you're better, but because you see clearer. And society does not reward clarity. It rewards conformity. It rewards silence. It rewards obedience to systems that were never designed for awakened minds. So they try to shame you back into normal. They try to guilt you back into comfort. They try to fear you back into shrinking. But something inside you refuses. Because this leaving is not emotional, it is spiritual. God removes you before what's around you collapses. God shifts you before what surrounds you becomes toxic to your assignment. God separates you so your vision is not contaminated by doubt. You're not running away, you're being repositioned. And yes, it hurts. Chosen transitions are rarely painless. You grieve versions of yourself. You grieve people who cannot grow with you. You grieve dreams that were too small for who you're becoming. But pain does not mean you're wrong. It means you're stretching beyond the limits that once defined you. The chosen one is not called to blend in. They are called to build differently, think differently, walk differently, and that difference demands distance. This is why you feel restless. This is why you feel the urge to detach. This is why staying feels heavier than leaving. It's God's doing. Not as punishment. As protection. Not as rejection. as redirection. You are about to step into rooms where your voice won't be mocked, where your vision won't be minimized, where your depth won't intimidate. But to enter those rooms, you must release the ones that were built for a previous version of you. The chosen are often accused of changing, and they did. They chose growth over comfort, truth over approval, alignment over applause. You are not crazy for feeling this shift. You are not ungrateful for wanting more. You are not selfish for needing distance. You are responding to a call. And the call is clear. Leave what diminishes you. Leave what distracts you. Leave what dishonors your spirit. Because when God moves you, staying becomes disobedience. This is your confirmation, not that everything will be easy, not that everyone will understand, but that the separation you're experiencing is intentional. You are being pulled toward purpose, and purpose requires space. So don't resist the shift. Don't beg for what's exiting. Don't chase what's being removed. Stand still, trust the process, and walk when you're directed. If this message spoke directly to your spirit, then you already know this wasn't random. Like this video, so more awakened souls can find confirmation in their transition. Comment, "I'm ready," if you feel the shift happening in your life. And subscribe to Return to Awakening so you never miss the messages meant for those who are chosen to rise differently. The truth is, some of you have been trying to hold on longer than you were supposed to. You've been praying for clarity, but resisting the answer when it arrived. You asked for elevation, but you didn't expect it to require separation. Chosen ones often mistake divine detachment for abandonment, but when God removes you, it is never random. It is strategic. You are being relocated spiritually before you are relocated physically. Look at your life carefully. The arguments increased. The misunderstandings intensified. The peace disappeared, not because you became difficult, but because your spirit outgrew the frequency of the room. You tried to adjust. You tried to tone yourself down. You tried to make others comfortable with a version of you that no longer existed. And every time you did, you felt that inner resistance, that tightness in your chest, that quiet voice saying, "This isn't it anymore." That voice is not ego, it is alignment. When you are chosen, your spirit becomes sensitive to misalignment. You feel when something is off before anyone says it out loud. You sense when loyalty turns into obligation. You recognize when love turns into limitation. And that sensitivity is not weakness, it is spiritual awareness. The chosen are not meant to stay where their growth is negotiated. They are not meant to beg for understanding in places that refuse depth. They are not meant to dilute their calling to maintain connections that were seasonal. There are seasons in life. Some are for learning, some are for building, some are for enduring, and some are for leaving. You are in the leaving season. Not because you hate anyone, not because you think you're superior, but because your next assignment requires a different environment. You feel it in your sleep. You feel it in your prayers. You feel it when you sit alone and imagine your future. There's something bigger waiting, something more aligned, something that feels both terrifying and liberating at the same time. That mixture of fear and excitement is confirmation. Growth always feels unstable before it feels secure. The chosen one walks by faith, not by applause. And faith sometimes looks like stepping away without having the full blueprint. It looks like trusting that if God is closing this chapter, He has already written the next one. But here is what makes it difficult. Familiar pain is comfortable. You know how to survive it. Unknown territory requires courage. It demands surrender. It forces you to rely on God more than your own calculations. And that surrender is where many hesitate. Because leaving means letting go of identity. You were known there. You had a role there. You had a position there. And now you are being asked to step into the unknown without guarantees. But understand this clearly. The chosen are never removed without being reassigned. If God is taking you out, It is because where you are cannot sustain who you are becoming. Staying would slowly shrink you, and you were not created to shrink. You were created to expand with responsibility, to carry influence with integrity, to move with purpose, not popularity. There are conversations you won't have anymore. There are invitations that will stop. There are relationships that will fade quietly, and instead of fighting it, observe it. The separation is unfolding naturally. That is how you know it's divine. You're not forcing it, it's happening. Some people will call you distant. Some will say you changed. Some will try to guilt you back into your old self. But the chosen cannot return to ignorance once awareness has arrived. You see too much now. You understand too deeply now. You feel too clearly now. And with that clarity comes responsibility. Responsibility to protect your peace. Responsibility to guard your energy. Responsibility to answer the call even when it costs you comfort. This leaving is not about escape. It is about obedience. Obedience to growth. Obedience to truth. Obedience to the path God is unfolding in front of you. There is a version of you waiting on the other side of this transition. Stronger, wiser, more disciplined, more focused. But that version cannot emerge while you are anchored to environments that keep reminding you of who you used to be. You are not being pushed out. You are being pulled forward. And forward requires movement. Forward requires courage you didn't know you had. It requires silence when you want to explain yourself. It requires restraint when you want to defend your growth. Chosen ones often feel the urge to justify their departure, to sit people down, to make them understand, to prove that they are not abandoning anyone. But sometimes the most powerful move is quiet obedience. Not everyone is meant to understand your transition. Some only knew you in a specific season, and when that season ends, their access ends too. That does not make them enemies, it makes them chapters. And you cannot carry every chapter into the next book of your life. There are attachments you thought were destiny, but they were preparation. There were environments you thought were permanent, but they were temporary classrooms. And once the lesson is complete, staying becomes stagnation. The chosen feel stagnation intensely. It feels like suffocation, like walking in circles, like waking up every day knowing you're meant for more but pretending you're satisfied with less. That dissatisfaction is holy. It is not greed. It is not ego. It is a signal that your spirit is being stretched toward a higher level of responsibility. And with greater responsibility comes greater separation. You cannot elevate while still needing approval from those who are comfortable where they are. You cannot expand while fearing the opinions of people who never saw your potential clearly. The chosen are tested in hidden seasons. Before the visible shift comes, there is an invisible refinement. Habits are challenged. Discipline is built. Character is strengthened. You may feel like nothing is happening, but everything is being rearranged behind the scenes. Sometimes the leaving happens internally before it happens externally. You detach emotionally long before you physically step away. You stop sharing certain thoughts. You stop reacting the same way. You stop seeking validation. That internal shift is the first sign. You begin to crave solitude, not because you hate people, but because silence brings clarity, and clarity exposes what no longer aligns with your calling. The chosen are not antisocial. They are intentional. They realize that constant noise delays revelation, and in the quiet, direction becomes clearer. You've been sitting with thoughts you've never shared, dreams you've never voiced, plans you've been hesitant to pursue. And every time you consider stepping fully into them, something tries to pull you back. Fear, doubt, familiar faces, old expectations. But here is what you must understand. When God initiates separation, resistance prolongs discomfort. Acceptance accelerates peace. You are not leaving because you failed there. You are leaving because you fulfilled what you were meant to fulfill in that space. And fulfillment does not always come with celebration. Sometimes it comes with silence. Sometimes it comes with misunderstanding. Sometimes it comes with doors quietly closing without explanation. But the chosen learn to trust the closure. Because if God allowed you to enter that season, He also determines when you exit it. And His timing is not based on your comfort. It is based on your readiness. You are being prepared for environments where your discipline will be tested at a higher level, where your faith will need to be stronger, where your influence will require humility and responsibility. And those environments cannot be accessed while clinging to what is comfortable. There is a loneliness that comes with elevation, a narrow path, fewer voices, fewer distractions, but greater clarity. You will notice your circle shrinking, your conversations becoming more purposeful, your time becoming more valuable. This is not loss, it is refinement. Gold is purified by fire, and the chosen are refined by separation. You are being refined right now. Every uncomfortable shift, every awkward distance, every sudden ending, it is shaping you for what is ahead. What's ahead requires a version of you that is no longer emotionally dependent on what you're leaving behind. You can't carry insecurity into your next level. You can't carry fear into your next assignment. You can't carry old identities into a new calling. So the stripping feels intense. You're losing comfort. You're losing familiarity. You're losing easy access to people who once defined your routine. But in that loss, something powerful is happening. Your reliance is shifting. Instead of leaning on validation, you're learning to lean on conviction. Instead of waiting for agreement, you're moving with certainty. Instead of seeking constant reassurance, you're building quiet confidence rooted in faith. This is maturation, spiritual maturation. The chosen are not elevated because they are loud. They are elevated because they are disciplined, because they obey even when obedience isolates them, because they move when called, even if the path is unclear. Right now, you may feel misunderstood. You may feel like explaining yourself one last time, like trying to make people see your heart. But sometimes clarity is not for others. It's for you. You know what you've been feeling. You know what has been shifting. You know what you can no longer tolerate. That awareness is enough. When God is about to expand your territory, He reduces your distractions. When He is about to increase your impact, He tightens your circle. When He is about to elevate your thinking, He removes voices that dilute your focus. It's strategic. You thought the tension was random. It was. You thought the distance was accidental. It was. You thought the discomfort meant something was wrong, but it means something is changing. And change is uncomfortable for everyone involved, especially those who benefited from the old version of you. The old you was accessible. The old you was predictable. The old you was easier to control. But the new you is discerning. The new you asks questions. The new you refuses to participate in what compromises your values. That shift unsettles people. Not because you're wrong, but because your growth exposes stagnation. Chosen ones often trigger others without trying to. Your discipline convicts laziness. Your clarity exposes confusion. Your faith unsettles doubt. And instead of adjusting themselves, some will try to adjust you. They'll call you extreme. They'll call you distant. They'll say you've changed too much. But change was necessary. Because what's ahead requires stability in your identity. It requires that you know who you are without constant affirmation. It requires that you trust God's direction even when it contradicts public opinion. This is not just about leaving people. It's about leaving patterns, leaving mentalities, leaving cycles that kept repeating because you were too loyal to familiarity. You've outgrown the cycle. And once you outgrow a cycle, staying in it feels painful. You start noticing how much energy is wasted on things that don't matter. You start questioning why you tolerated what drained you. You start realizing that you were dimming your light to make others comfortable. That realization is powerful, because now you can't go back to sleep. Awakening changes everything. It shifts your standards. It sharpens your boundaries. It forces you to evaluate who truly aligns with your direction and who was only aligned with your past. And alignment is everything. You don't need a large crowd. You need aligned connections. You don't need constant noise. You need clear direction. You don't need everyone to clap. You need God's approval. That's the shift happening inside you. You are becoming less concerned with being liked and more concerned with being obedient. Less focused on fitting in and more focused on fulfilling your assignment. That transition is sacred. But it will cost you. It will cost you access. It will cost you comfort. It will cost you certain relationships. And yet, what you gain will outweigh what you release. Because peace is heavier than approval. Purpose is greater than popularity. Alignment is more valuable than attachment. You are stepping into that understanding now. And once you understand that, everything begins to shift internally. You stop arguing with reality. You stop forcing connections. You stop trying to revive what God is allowing to fade. There is a quiet strength forming in you, a calm certainty. You may not have all the details, but you have direction, and direction is more powerful than explanation. Chosen ones don't always get a public announcement when it's time to move. Sometimes the only confirmation is the unrest in your spirit, the repeated signs, the consistent feeling that you cannot stay the same. You've been asking for a breakthrough, but breakthroughs often begin with breakdowns, not destruction, deconstruction, the tearing down of old foundations that cannot support the weight of your next level. If you stayed, you would slowly compromise, slowly shrink, slowly forget the vision that once burned inside you, and that forgetting would be more painful than this separation. So God interrupts your comfort. He allows tension to rise. He allows misunderstandings to surface. He allows situations to unfold that make it impossible for you to ignore the truth. Not to harm you, but to wake you up fully. Because partial awakening is dangerous. It makes you aware but inactive, and the chosen are not meant to live in awareness without action. You are being pushed into action, into movement, into decisive obedience. Some of you have been waiting for a perfect sign, a loud confirmation, a dramatic moment, but what you're experiencing now is the sign. The discomfort is the confirmation. The detachment is the instruction. When peace leaves a place, pay attention. When joy fades in certain environments, observe it. When your spirit feels heavy around specific conversations, don't ignore it. Your spirit recognizes misalignment before your mind does. And you've felt it repeatedly. The laughter doesn't feel the same. The goals don't feel big enough. The energy feels off. You've been trying to convince yourself that it's temporary, but deep down, you know it's transitional. Transitions are sacred. They are uncomfortable because they stretch your identity. You are no longer who you were, but you haven't fully stepped into who you are becoming. That in-between space feels lonely. But it is necessary. Because in that space, you are forced to rely on God more deeply than ever before. There are fewer voices to consult, fewer distractions to hide behind, fewer excuses to delay obedience. You are face to face with your calling now. And your calling requires courage. It requires that you trust that what's ahead is better aligned, even if it's unfamiliar. It requires that you release control and allow God to orchestrate the next chapter without your interference. You've been holding on tightly, trying to manage the outcome, trying to keep everyone comfortable, trying to avoid disappointing people. But you cannot protect everyone and still protect your purpose. At some point, you must choose alignment over approval, and that choice is rarely applauded by the people who benefited from your old availability. This is where maturity separates you. Instead of reacting emotionally, you respond strategically. Instead of arguing, you observe. Instead of forcing clarity, you accept that not everyone is meant to understand your evolution. You are evolving, and evolution requires separation from what cannot evolve with you. There are heights you are meant to reach that require solitude first. There are insights you are meant to receive that require silence. There are opportunities being prepared that require you to be unattached to your current location. If you cling to what's comfortable, you delay what's prepared. And you were not chosen to delay. You were chosen to move when called. Right now you are being called. You feel it in the stillness. When the noise fades and you're alone with your thoughts, there's a weight in your chest that doesn't feel like anxiety. It feels like urgency, a quiet urgency, like time is shifting, like something is closing behind you while something else is opening ahead. This is not pressure from people, it's pressure from purpose. Purpose has a way of disturbing comfort. It whispers when you try to settle. It nudges when you try to ignore it. It creates dissatisfaction in spaces that once satisfied you. And you've been trying to negotiate with it. Maybe I can stay a little longer. Maybe I can adjust. Maybe I'm overthinking. But the feeling hasn't left. It's grown stronger, clearer, more persistent. That persistence is not coincidence. It's direction. The chosen are often given multiple confirmations before the actual move happens, not because God is unsure, but because He knows transition can be intimidating. So He prepares your heart before He changes your environment. Look at the signs. Conversations repeating the same shallow patterns. Opportunities that no longer excite you. A deep craving for more discipline, more depth, more meaning. You are being stretched beyond the limits of your current surroundings. And stretching hurts, because part of you wants to hold on to what's known, even if it's small, even if it's limiting, at least it's predictable. But destiny is rarely predictable. The chosen do not walk paths that are widely understood. Their steps are often questioned, their silence misinterpreted, their distance misunderstood. Yet they continue, because obedience matters more than opinion. Right now, your obedience is being tested. Will you trust the shift? Will you accept the detachment? Will you release the fear of being misunderstood? You are not being called to chaos. You are being called to alignment, and alignment requires pruning. Some habits must be cut. Some relationships must be released. Some environments must be exited. Pruning looks harsh from the outside, but it produces stronger growth. You are in a pruning season. That's why certain distractions no longer entertain you. That's why certain conversations exhaust you. That's why your tolerance for mediocrity has decreased. You are being refined for greater responsibility. Because what's coming will require focus. It will require spiritual strength. It will require clarity that cannot exist in constant compromise. You've already started pulling back emotionally. You've already started thinking differently. You've already started envisioning a life that looks nothing like your current routine. That vision is not random imagination. It's revelation. God doesn't show you glimpses of your future to torture you. He shows you to prepare you, to strengthen your faith, to remind you that where you are is not where you will remain. But preparation demands participation. You cannot see a higher level and still cling to a lower one. You cannot crave purpose and resist the process that leads to it. And the process right now is separation. Not loud, not dramatic, but steady. You are gradually being detached from what once defined you, titles, roles, expectations. You are being stripped down to your core identity. Who are you without their approval? Who are you without their expectations? Who are you when no one is watching? That's the version God is building. Because when you step into your next assignment, you won't have time to question yourself. You'll need conviction. You'll need stability. You'll need unwavering trust. And that kind of strength is built in isolation. So don't fear the quiet. Don't fear the distance. Don't fear the unfamiliar thoughts about leaving. They are not signs of rebellion. They are signs of readiness. Readiness does not always feel like confidence. Sometimes it feels like discomfort. Sometimes it feels like restlessness. Sometimes it feels like everything you once tolerated suddenly becoming unbearable. That shift is maturity. You are no longer entertained by what once distracted you. You are no longer impressed by what once intimidated you. You are no longer satisfied with surface-level connections that lack depth and sincerity. Something inside you has recalibrated. Your standards have risen. Your awareness has sharpened. Your patience for misalignment has decreased. And because of that, staying where you are feels unnatural. Chosen ones experience this inner recalibration before any visible change occurs. On the outside, life may look the same, but internally, everything is shifting. Your thoughts are deeper. Your prayers are more intentional. Your goals are more focused. You are not drifting, you are aligning. Alignment creates tension with environments built on who you used to be. They expect the old reactions, the old availability, the old tolerance, but you cannot return to that version of yourself without betraying the growth God has cultivated in you. And betrayal of growth feels heavier than separation from people. So you feel torn. Part of you remembers the memories, the laughter, the comfort, the shared history, and another part of you feels pulled toward something greater, something quieter but stronger. That pull is purpose. Purpose does not shout, it directs, it doesn't beg, it requires. And right now it requires that you detach from what cannot support your next level. This is where faith becomes real. Not when everything is clear. Not when everyone agrees. But when you move anyway. You may not know every detail of what's ahead, but you know you cannot stay. That knowing is enough. The chosen rarely receive full explanations in advance. They receive instructions, step by step, moment by moment, enough light for the next move, not the entire journey. And that is where trust is built. Trust that if God is removing something, He has already calculated what will replace it. Trust that if He is creating distance, it is for protection. Trust that if He is stirring discomfort, it is to prevent stagnation. You are not losing ground, you are being repositioned. Repositioning often feels like instability, but it is strategic, like a chess piece being moved into a stronger position. It may look like retreat, but it is preparation for advancement. Your advancement requires clarity. Clarity about who you are. Clarity about what you stand for. Clarity about what you will no longer tolerate. And that clarity cannot coexist with constant compromise. You have compromised enough. You have adjusted enough. You have been patient enough. Now you are being called to be decisive. Decisive about your boundaries. Decisive about your focus. Decisive about your direction. Some will interpret your decisiveness as coldness, but it is not coldness, it is conviction. Conviction makes you quieter. Conviction makes you less reactive. Conviction makes you unshaken by opinions. You are becoming unshaken. And unshaken people cannot remain in unstable environments for long. That is why the exit is approaching, not necessarily dramatic, not explosive, but inevitable. You can feel the countdown, not in days, not in dates, but in awareness. Each day you feel less attached. Each day you feel more certain that something is ending. Endings are sacred when God ordains them. They clear space. They reset direction. They remove confusion. And the confusion has been lifting. You see clearly now who aligns with your future and who was only connected to your past. You see clearly which habits strengthen you and which weaken you. You see clearly which environments elevate your faith and which drain it. That clarity is a gift, but it comes with responsibility. Because once you see clearly, you are accountable for what you do next.